Chelsa, I think we're both going to fade Max Scherzer here.
Yeah, I think you pick a way to fade Max Scherzer here. Whether you take the Astros in the first 5, just banking on the starting pitcher mismatch that we already saw when these two pitchers went head-to-head earlier on in the series, or you can do a soft fade of Max Scherzer. I think that's what I'm going to do. Max Scherzer over his earned runs prop, over 1.5 earned runs for, I believe, minus 130. I need to double check that price. But every single starting pitcher in this series has given this up, with the exception of Jordan Montgomery in the first game of the series. What happened when he faced this lineup for the second time in this series? He gave up this number. Despite pitching a gem, 1.5 is a very low number. The sabotage factor is maybe you take Max Scherzer out like before he gives this up, but I don't think so. I think if he is dealing, they will keep him in a little bit longer, but still, this Astros lineup facing Max Scherzer, I think he gives up at least 2 earned runs. So I like that one. I'm going to go under his outs prop. I think he gets yanked from this game early on. I think maybe those two plays kind of go against each other a little bit because you don't want him taken out if he hasn't given up that earned run yet. But still, I think it's going to be a tough time for Max Scherzer in this series where both sides, the bats have been extremely hot. Meanwhile, you look at Christian Javier, who's been fantastic in the postseason thus far. Some of the best numbers of any pitcher still standing, 2-0 with a 1.69 ERA. I think that continues here. Maybe not quite as dominant because, like I said, it's a little bit tougher when you face the same lineup for the second time in the span of like a week. But still, I would bank on the Astros here, at least in the first 5.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go here. And God, I really hate fading Max. I love Max so much, but I just haven't seen it from him. And I keep talking about his health. I don't know how healthy he is. Obviously good enough to go. But ultimately, if you look at, to me, you look at Christian Javier, I don't know how you fade him. I mean, you can't fade him, right? Like maybe Max comes out and maybe this is a first 5 under. I definitely don't want to bet that when it comes to these two bats. But Christian Javier has been so good throughout the postseason, not just this year, but in his career. So I think Astros first 5 money line is the call. It's minus 130, so just a touch juicier than Astros full game money line. Are you concerned at all that the Astros are a much worse team a much worse team at home than on the road? A team with a losing record at home has never made the World Series.
I don't think so. Just because you look at the Astros team that we saw during the regular season, and some of their big guns spent a lot of time on the injured list. Michael Brantley didn't play for a large chunk of the season. We had like a mini stretch where Jose Altuve wasn't playing at the start of the year. Jose Abreu was nowhere the level of scorching hot that he is now. So yes, it is a bit of an anomaly, but this is also game 7 of the ALCS, and the pitching matchup still favors the Astros here because we've seen it. The games that the Rangers have won have been the games where their 2 aces have been throwing, Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi. This is way different. I know Max Scherzer has the big name here, but still the Astros tagged him for 5 earned runs last time around. So it just, I think it is a stat that is important and you should take into consideration. But in this scenario, I don't think it's something that would influence my bet.
Would you be willing to do a same game parlay and play it up, hit the under, and then drop down this line to Niners -1?
Well, I like the Niners -1, but teasing totals, and we haven't talked about this too much, teasing totals is where it gets a little hairy because there's not as many, it's points are not as much at a premium when you are teasing totals. Like it is a big shift when you're taking Niners -7 to Niners -1. But if this game's a free for all, like you could lose that. So I don't think I am interested in teasing totals. Again, I think I will just look at some props in this one. And we have injuries on both sides of the ball that kind of open up some targets for other people. I think with the absence of Deebo Samuel, you look at Brandon Aiyuk. The matchup suggested, like I said, the Vikings giving up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers and also the 4th most receptions. Brandon Aiyuk has had some big games this year, had 76 in that last one when they had a ton of injuries, even against a good Browns defense, which I am, starting to question after that game against the Colts. But still,
Right.
he's had 3 games where he's gone over 70 and a half, and that is the number. Yes, it's a high number, but I do think he sees quite a few targets in this one, especially with the absence of Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I'm going to go over his reception prop, which is 4.5 receptions at -140. I don't really mind the price here. Now, he's only hit this in 2 of his 5 games this season, but he had 4 receptions each against both the Browns and the Cowboys in the past 2 weeks, and those are 2 of the best defenses in the league. Vikings don't qualify. You mentioned Deebo Samuel being out, which I think plays to that. So I think I'm going to go over his reception prop.
Who is your Monday MVP?
Well, I don't know if I've ever done this before, but I am going off of a board here, which I never do. I usually stick to the script. I am going to give it to someone I'm not even a big fan of, and that is Bill Belichick. Because the man recorded his 300th regular season victory in the NFL. And you're saying, oh, that's so boring. Do you know how many times that's been done in the NFL? Twice in history. Don Shula and Papa Bear Hallis, 2 Hall of Famers. So this is a guy who has been much maligned this season. I get it. But ultimately, we're talking about one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history, whether you believe Brady was a more significant part of that or not. 300 wins in the regular season in the National Football League. It is remarkable. He's waited a long time to get there. He got it with 12 seconds to play against the Bills. I am giving it to Bill Belichick.
Yeah, finally some credit for Bill Belichick in a year where it feels like every other conversation is about him being on the hot seat. What a huge win for the Patriots. But for me, the MVP of the weekend, and this is not something that I say with delight, has to be the sports books. Man, did they clean up in the NFL this weekend. We are looking at 7 bets, the 7 games that had over 70% of the action on one side, all 7 of them losers. The books made big money, probably going to build another hotel out in the desert just because of this weekend in the NFL. So I don't have any delight in saying this, but it was a weekend to forget for the public and a weekend to remember for the sports books. But I do want to give a small honorable mention to the quarterback for Utah, Bryson Barnes, a guy that didn't even have a scholarship at the start of the season, taking down an opposing quarterback who is rumored to be demanding for a stake in the NFL team that he is going to be drafted on. Like, imagine the contrast of those 2 guys. This guy demanding, I need to be a part owner of any team I'm drafted on. And this guy's like, hey, can you just pay for my books? And then guess who's the quarterback that won in this game? It was Bryson Barnes. So I do want to tip my cap to Bryson Barnes as well. But MVP of the weekend, unfortunately, would be the sports books.